Hello and welcome to Powell Guitar on YouTube. For this first edition of Guitar Guided Study, I chose the Andante in C by Fernando Sor. Fernando Sor lived from 1778 to 1839, and although this really isn't about music history, I do want to make sure to let each and every one of you know that Fernando Sor is considered the Beethoven of the guitar. If you are a classical guitarist, you need to know about the music of Fernando Sor. And it doesn't hurt to know a little bit about his life either. He was a very interesting person. He writes tremendous music for the guitar, so he's worth checking out and worth getting to know as a musician. In Fernando Sor's catalog, there are several different opus numbers that boil down to collections of studies, and this is from the Opus 35, which he self-published in the year 1828. There sure is a lot to pull apart in these 32 bars written by Fernando Sor. What I would start off telling any student is, first and foremost, I would number each bar of your music. If you're a student of mine in my studio, you have heard that. You have heard, let's go ahead and number each one of the measure numbers so that we can make sure we're always talking about the same thing. I think it's really important between student and teacher that everybody knows what measure we're talking about. You can do the old-fashioned thing and say, third system, first measure of the third system and that kind of stuff. That's also specific, but I find that if you just number all of them, that gets that out of the way. So that's a preference in my studio that I have. Basically, we've got a whole bunch of different four-measure phrases that are happening in this piece of music. And so once you go ahead and write that down, that sort of stuff becomes obvious. In the edition that I have available for you here free of charge, you can see that each line is a four-measure phrase that happens, and so it's fun to pick that apart. Let's just go line by line. As we go through the first line there, basically you can visualize that we've got a chord that we're holding this out of, and that's one of the things that throughout this entire piece and through lots of different guitar studies, we can see and visualize that we can hold the chord whenever possible. The guitarist's golden rule, and I'll put this down so you can see it right here. Never lift a finger unless you have to, and I'm talking about the left hand. I'm talking about the left hand when I say the guitarist's golden rule. I coined that phrase from my very, very first guitar teacher, Dr. Mark Weber, a wonderful human being, and that rule is completely true. As we're playing, we're right out of a C scale. It looks and sounds like this. So measures 1 and 2, you're holding that left hand pattern there, even when you add that fourth finger down on the G. Then we move over, holding fingers until we don't have to, okay? That's that first line. The second line in measure 5 is almost an entire repeat. And then we change there. All right? In measures 9 through 16, we've got a very, very fun phrase that we work here. It sounded like this. Right? So let's break that down. We're going to break that down in 2 lines. Couple of things that we can do right away. One thing I would recommend is breaking down the intervals that happen. You can see that we've got on beat 1 of measure 9, we've got a stop where we have B in the low note with the thumb, and D will be played with the pinky. And you can look at those together. Okay, basically another way to look at that is I'm taking out the open G. If you take out that open G, you'll start to see how this harmonic skeleton works. And then measures 11 and 12. So again, I'm taking out that G. Here it is back in there. Right? In music, this is called a pedal tone. A pedal tone is going to be that note that is repeated. And what I'm gonna say this a couple of times through guitar guided study session, and I'm also going to say it in this lesson here. When you have a repeated note like that, when you have a pedal tone, it's really important to let the music do the talking. And what I mean by that is, let's not overstrike that note. Here's an example of what I'm talking about so you can hear what I'm saying. I'm just wailing on that G. Okay? And hopefully you can hear that that's a little out of balance. All right? Hopefully that comes across very well. Those double stops are what's important, and the repeated G is not quite as musically important. So, starting again. All right? So anyway, don't overplay that open G. It doesn't need much help, especially when we repeat it that much. All right? And again, from 13 through 16, you can practice those double stops. All right. One thing I tell my students is to work on having the sound interrupt the next sound. And what I mean by that is playing those double stops as smoothly as you can. What we don't want to hear is this. We don't want to hear a gap. Okay, the music does not say to do that. So what I'm saying is to go ahead and have the sound that hits the string, especially with your right hand, try and glue those together as smoothly as you can. So here's measures 9 through 16 once again. I also threw a crescendo in there that hopefully you could hear on the recording. Measure 17 through 24 can be approached in largely the same way. What happens is the melody part really does this sort of skipping down, stepping up, skipping down, stepping up thing. Okay? We add that with our bass notes in there. Here it is. Again, don't overplay that G. So the double stops can be concentrated on again. Measure 21 through 24 is almost a written out repeat. I would really recommend holding that low G in measure 24 over. The music does not tell us to do this. I'm interpreting it this way. But it helps things ring. And then I would grab the F in beat 3 with the pinky. Also adding a slight retard. Measure 25 through 32 are quite a lot of fun. And let's just remind ourselves what it sounds like. So, once again, measures 25 and 26, we can hold that C chord down. Adding the pinky, right? Then you're going to jump to this D minor chord. I didn't really talk about that back in the beginning when we did measures 1 through 4. That third measure and then in measure 27, those are D minor chords. A lot of times my students are like, oh, that's an F chord. That's a weird sounding F chord. It's a weird sounding F chord. Well, It's really D minor in what's called first inversion. D, F, and A. F is in our bass. There's your first inversion. So anyway, so here's the last line, measure 29 through 32. Again, that C chord, it's the top half of it. Technically is an inversion, but that's okay. In measure 30, I absolutely love this dissonance. We don't hear this type of dissonance in a lot of Fernando Sor's music, but here you've got an F in the bass and an E up top. That is a major seventh, and it has really quite a jangle to it, doesn't it? Really what's happening when you get there and have them all down at the end, the F, the A, the D, and the F, there's your D minor in that first inversion again. But here like this, students hear that and they go, oh, that doesn't sound right. When you hear it in the context of the last line, it's gorgeous, it shimmers. My suggestion I would have for the last two bars is this: you play the double stop first, and then I would bring the pinky over for that low C in the last measure. And you guessed it, I would hold that G over. Again, the music does not tell us to do that. I'm saying interpret it that way. It lets things ring. Let's go and hear it one last time. Remember, the score is free for you to download. It's from the 1830 published edition, so it's long in the public domain. You are free to take it. I did rebeam a couple of things from the original because there are some rests in that original one that aren't really needed when you look at it through a modern lens. But I did put the fingerings in there that I think are appropriate, both for right and left hand. So here's the entire piece one more time. This is the Fernando Sor Andante in C from Opus 35. It's number 1. And enjoy. It's been a lot of fun showing you this guitar guided study. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for updates. We'll see you around, and happy playing. Thanks so much for watching this Powell guitar video hosted on YouTube. If you appreciate what you just saw, go ahead and give it a like. Also, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing the bell to stay updated with all the latest videos. Check out my other social media presence located on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube. We'll see you around, and happy playing.